Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for joining me. Today is February the 5th, 2022. I will share some news in a reading and uh, also on news on the video. So I will start with Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, speech to the 35th African Union session happening in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So he gives a very long speech, but I will share some of his expression, also his speech to you. So in this speech, he repeated the claim about the civil war, the bloody war happening in Ethiopia. He claimed it was a law and order operation conducted with a minimum casualty on human life and also on property destruction. That is his claim. But the reality is, as we all know, is beyond that. He also claim based on the goodwill, good intention of Ethiopia and unilateral ceasefire declared. That's also false. They were forced out of Tigray by public uprising, public courageous Tigrayan fighters. And but he repeated this claim. He also called on Pan-Africanism to make stronger Pan-Africanism and to establish Pan-Africanism media, just something like he has now in Ethiopia, like Walter, Fana Television, EBC, Ethiopia Press Agency. He want to create something like that for Pan-Africanism so they can control the media, the narratives, the news. He just want to create that one Pan-Africanism media to use like ABC or Fana or Walter, something like that. He blamed the international media for telling the truth about the war, exposing the criminality of his conduct. He blamed the United States, the Western countries, for for calling for the real dialogue, consultation to solve the problem. So these are some of the his speech. Let's listen what he say in the just a little bit. If you want to hear the whole speech, you can get it from Walter or ABC or whatever the Ethiopian media. But I don't want you to hear to save your time. Just listen to a little bit what he said.
We shall leave no stone unturned in our search for peace in our country. Consistent with our commitment to peace, to peaceful resolution of conflict, we have recently launched an inclusive national dialogue platform with formal legislation. Our commitment to pursuing lasting and durable peace in our country shall remain steadfast. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest lesson that Ethiopia has learned over the past year is that without the solidarity of our African brothers and sisters, our existence as a nation would have been at great risk. This affirms the wisdom of our forefathers and foremothers in their dream of Pan-Africanism. The old saying is true: united we stand, divided we fall. Today, we stand proud and tall as Africans in the shadow of those who struggled to liberate and unite Africa. Our steadfast unity is the anchor and the foundation of our Agenda 2063. A continent of 1.3 billion people, a substantial percentage of them young and dynamic, will drive Africa's prosperity and pull it out of poverty as we set forth in our Agenda 2063. Also, our Continental Free Trade Agreement holds the greatest promise of effectively realizing continental integration and development. The potential for increased intra-Africa trade, free movement of people, and investment and self-reliance is a beacon for Africa's renaissance. And instead of depending solely on trade out of Africa, our collective effort to boost intra-Africa trade will protect us from the fluctuation of global economic and political change. Similarly, the potential for continent-wide tourism remains untapped. It is part of aspiration of 5 of Agenda 2063, which seeks to create an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, values, and ethics. The more we know each other, the more we are able to cooperate and resist the force that seek to divide and undermine us. You may recall, a mere 2 months ago, efforts were underway by some in the international community to create an atmosphere of fear to drive expatriates out of Ethiopia and discourage travel to Ethiopia. Those efforts were not successful and will not be successful. Indeed, many fellow Africans joined the Great Ethiopian Diaspora Homecoming Challenge and proved to the world that Ethiopia is a safe and culturally rich tourist destination. As a key pillar of our national reform agenda, tourism potential within Ethiopia has been augmented greatly in the past 2 years, with many natural endowments developed to complement the historic and cultural heritage that already exists. Ethiopia remains open and welcomes all of our fellow African brothers and sisters. Finally, let me once again convey the warm welcome of the Ethiopian people and reiterate Ethiopia's commitment to do everything in our power to continue to create an enabling environment for the African Union in our collective efforts to deliver the Africa we want through robust implementation of Agenda 2063. God bless Ethiopia. God bless Africa. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so that is part of his speech, and I also have some other videos at the end. So he was claiming so many things, and he got so many nice words. He was saying without Pan-Africanism, African will be at greater risk. He also said self-reliance and a common trade, and also he was saying talking about ethics and cultural values. All these are nice words, but the main thing is, first, he's supposed to respect and have a better atmosphere at home with his own people. Ethiopia is, as we all know, is in a very, very bad shape. There is no law in order Ethiopia. He's talking about law in order. He's talking about Pan-Africanism, bringing Africa together and respecting values, cultural values. ethics. No, this doesn't work. And Pan-Africanism should not be used to cover up your internal problem. Pan-Africanism is very, very historically very successful ideology, but it should not be used to cover up the crimes. The crime he is or his administration is carrying out against Ethiopians, whether the war in northern part of the country or the war in east and west Wallagga, Borana, and everywhere. Plus the crimes the Prosperity Party carried out, assassination or genocide on Karayu Oromos. So you got to start Pan-Africanism at home first. Have or create a better relationship at home with your own people, with respect of culture, ethics, and the rule of the land. Ethiopia is not the rule of the land under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for the last 3 years. People assassinated and, in public, prisoners are taken out from prison and assassinated. And so many unknown killings, assassination, never got independent investigation. So many illegal or criminal conducts happening under his leadership, plus unnecessary civil war in the northern part and other parts of the country. So they want, especially the Prime Minister team, want to use Pan-Africanism to cover up this and to get support against Western country, against the Western media, thinking like the United States or the European countries are ready to invade Ethiopia. So they are claiming Pan-Africanism to join them. These are all the pretexts. These are all false. The United States is not or desire to invade Ethiopia. It's clear. They just want to have Ethiopia a peaceful, united country and stop the bloodshed, end the this cessation of the hostilities. Thus, they repeatedly calling on this one, but they translated in another way. They're calling, the United States is looking for regime change. The United States is getting ready to invade Ethiopia. So Africans must save Ethiopia. Those false claims and the claim of creating independent media so they can cover up the crimes. So the Pan-Africanism should not be used to attack the democratic movement, legitimate movement in the countries, and the attempt to control the flow of news. So that is wrong. Pan-Africanism was not designed for that purpose, and but the Prime Minister Abiy team want to use Pan-Africanism for its own purpose to keep their power for many years. So that's a wrong idea. That's not the intention of Pan-Africanism. Okay, let's continue to the other news. Thank you again for joining me. The first one is three very important political organizations boycotting the upcoming national dialogue in Ethiopia. I hope more will be joining them. I say this upcoming dialogue is meaningless and has no good ending except promoting Prosperity Party. So the opposition parties, Oromo Federalist Congress, OFC, Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, and Ogaden National Liberation Front, ONLF, said the process of Ethiopia's planned national dialogue and the nomination of commissioners to lead it is not impartial, unknown, and lacked representation. Addis Standard has confirmed from the three parties that their leaders have declined to join a meeting today, which was called by Taggese Chafo, Speaker of the House of People's Representatives, HOPR. The meeting was called by the Speaker to discuss the list of nominees. It was on December 29 that the House approved the Commission's establishment proclamation number 1265 as 2014 by major vote with 13 noes and 1 abstention. Subsequently, the HOPR Standing Committee on Law, Justice and Democracy said commissioners who will be leading the National Dialogue Commission will be selected by the people of Ethiopia and their appointment will be approved by the parliament. Late this afternoon, the HOPR has issued a short list of 42 people who were nominated by the public to lead the National Dialogue Commission, NDC. Professor Marara Gudina, chairman of the Oromo Federalist Congress, confirmed to Addis Standard that party representatives didn't go to the meeting called by the HOPR speaker. We do not believe that it is impartial, Marara said, adding that the party has recently sent a letter to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed expressing its reservation on the transparency and inclusiveness in the process, but we have not received a response. Rune Gamta, OFC Secretariat, told Addis Standard that the letter raised a concern about the Commission's impartiality. The dialogue should be commissioned by accepted bodies, by the public, if not by internationally recognized independent bodies. However, the fact that the dialogue is overseen by the parliament led by the ruling party will not bring a lasting solution, as it will not include opposition parties as well as armed groups. The statement sent to the Prime Minister's office read, senior members of the party, including Jawar Mohammed, Baqqala Garba, and Hamza Borana, as well as several others who were arrested shortly after the assassination of popular Oromo artist Hachalu Hundessa, were released on January 7 in what the government said was in preparation for the national dialogue. Similarly, Lammi Gammachu, public relations head of the Oromo Liberation Front, told Addis Standard today that the party does not know what the dialogue is about. We were not invited. Although members of the Oromo Federalist Congress are released from the detention, majority of OLF's senior leadership remain either detained or missing. Many were set from on court bail, but were rearrested by the police. Abdi Mahdi's chairman, the ONLF, told Addis Standard that the party has already tested the sincerity of the current process in Ethiopia, like the so-called election, he said, adding that the ONLF has issued a statement a week ago outlining what we consider a fair and legitimate process to establish a national dialogue commission. The selection of such a committee must involve all key stakeholders. What we see is a one-party affair that is not representative. In addition, as a member of the multinational Federal Democratic Alliance, our key members are sidelined. Thus, the hope of starting a genuine dialogue that could find a viable solution to all injustice and the political quagmire in Ethiopia is in jeopardy. A one-party affair will never address the current political crisis in Ethiopia. Unless a genuine participatory process is put in place that reflects the interests of key stakeholders representing their respective communities, Abdi Mahdiz further said, adding the ONLF will not be attending any process with regards to the national dialogue and the National Dialogue Commissioner's selection process. So that is three major political organizations boycotting the upcoming Ethiopian national dialogue: Oromo Federalist Congress, Oromo Liberation Front, Ogaden National Liberation Front. So as I said, the upcoming dialogue is useless. It's organized by Prosperity Party and it's led by Prosperity Party, and the end game is to keep Prosperity Party in power without changing anything. They are doing it, as I said before, to get the Western attention, the Western blessing, and their money. Nothing else. Okay, more than 20,000 refugees flee clashes in Benishangul Gumuz region, UNHCR. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, reported that more than 20,000 refugees fled clashes in Benishangul Gumuz region, following clashes between unidentified armed groups and the federal forces. After the violence erupted, over 20,000 refugees made their way over long distance to 3 different sites closer to Asosa, the regional capital, arriving exhausted and in need of assistance, the report read. A nearby camp hosting 10,300 refugees was burned and looted following the fighting in town of Togo on January 18, the report said, recalling the previous looting of another camp in the area in late December. A total of 22,000 people in both camps were then cut off from access and assistance following the evacuation of all humanitarian staff as access to the area, including the 2 camps, Togo and Gure Shembola, remains impossible, the report read. The Benishangul Gumuz region hosts more than 70,000 Sudanese and South Sudanese refugees and over 500,000 internally displaced Ethiopians, the United Nations Refugee Agency said, describing the situation since December last year as very tense. The UNHCR, who is working with the Ethiopian government, refugee and returnee service and partners to provide the most urgent assistance to displaced refugees, commended Benishangul Gumuz regional authorities for showing solidarity with refugees and identifying a new temporary site with a capacity to accommodate 20,000 people. The report noted that 3 other refugee camps in the Benishangul Gumuz region, Bambasi, Sherkole, and Sore, remain fully accessible and all services there are functioning. The United Nations the UNHCR urges that a cessation of conflict is essential to avoid further threats to civilians' lives in the region. The agency also underlined that it is in urgent need of resources to respond to this and other emergency needs. Credit at this standard. UNISFA gets Nigerian Interim Force Commander as Ethiopia departs. This is about UN peacekeeping forces. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced the appointment of Major General Benjamin Olufemi Sawyer of Nigeria as Foreign Force Commander for the United Nations Interim Security Force for ABA, UNISFA. The United Nations said Major General Sawyer succeeds Major General Kafalo Amde Tasamma of Ethiopia, to whom the Secretary General is grateful for his dedication, invaluable service, and effective leadership during his appointment with UNISFA. In January this year, Sudan announced that the United Nations has agreed to replace thousands of Ethiopian forces within the United Nations Interim Security Forces for ABA, UNISFA, with the UN Force Chairman of UNICEF, with other UN forces, Chairman of Sudan's Transitional Sovereign Council, Abdul Fattah al-Burhan, received a phone call from United Nations Under Secretary General for Peace Operations Jean-Pierre Lacroix, in which the two sides discussed arrangement for replacing the Ethiopian forces within UNISFA with other UN forces upon Sudan's request, the Sovereign Council said in a statement. Major General Sawyer has a military career spanning more than 34 years of service with the Nigerian Army, including as the Director of Defense Information of Nigeria's Defense Forces since 2021. Previously, he served as Commandant of the Nigerian Army Armor School in Bauchi State in northeast Nigeria from 2020 to 2021. He held the position of Brigadier Commander twice in northeast Nigeria and was commanding officer of the Nigerian battalion with the United Nations mission in Liberia from 2009 to 2010. He also served as the Director of Plans at the Nigerian Army Headquarters between 2019 and 2020, and the Deputy Director of Doctrine and Combat Development from 2017 to 2018. Major General Sawyer holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaire, in Nigeria, and a Master's of Arts in Defense and Strategic Studies from the University of Madras in India. He is fluent in English with a working knowledge of Hausa and basic French. Credit Addis Standard, citing United Nations. So it's a very good biography, good accomplishment. The sad thing is Ethiopia is out. Nigeria is coming in as a head of UN peacekeeping operation. Thanks to Abiy Ahmed failed policy. Kenya, Rwanda leaders affirm commitment to work together to find lasting solution to the conflict in Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, and Somalia. President Uhuru Kenyatta and President Paul Kagame held one-on-one talks at State House, Nairobi, while President Paul Kagame was in the country on working visit. The two leaders affirmed their commitment to working together to find lasting solutions to conflicts facing Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, and Somalia. They also pledged to play a leading role in promoting dialogue and peace amongst the warring parties. The two leaders also discussed emerging issues concerning the region and the continent. The discussion covered topics including trade and transport. The pair discussion areas of cooperation between the two countries. President Kenyatta stressed Rwanda's strategic position in the region, and it is important to Kenya, especially as a gateway to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and the wider Great Lake region market. He commended Rwanda's move to reopen its Gatuna border with Uganda, saying it will ease the movement of goods and people between the two neighboring countries. The Kenyan leader assured his Rwandan counterpart of Kenya's commitment to ensuring the two countries collaborate in championing the ideas of the East African community for the benefits of the people of the region. Again, at this standard. This is about how unemployment is staggering in Ethiopia. This is terrible. We know its unemployment is high. This is one example that indicates how the unemployment is the huge problem in Ethiopia. Safaricom Ethiopia. So Safaricom Telecommunication Ethiopia is a member of the Vodacom family. So what is showing us here is the position this company has for new employees. It's 150. How many registered to compete? 130,000 for 150 opening. This is a clear indication of failed leadership, in Ethiopia. 130,000 new graduates registered for 150 opening. This company established a huge data center at Kaliti, Addis Ababa, with $100 million investment. So just to show you how people are desperate to get a job, very desperate. And this is a company won a contract, to run a communication center in Ethiopia. So for details, we got a lot of details. If you need more details, you can read Ethiopian Insider. I just want to show how Ethiopians are desperate and how the unemployment is very high. Too many negative things under Abiy Ahmed. Too many. This is one of the indications. 130,000 new graduates. New graduates looking and applying for 150 openings. That's terrible. This is a readout between Secretary Blinken and Djibouti Foreign Minister. Secretary of State Anthony J. Blinken spoke with Djibouti today, with the Djibouti Foreign Minister Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. The Secretary and the Foreign Minister launched policy consultation under the 2022 U.S. Djibouti Binational Forum. Secretary Blinken underscored the importance of the U.S.-Djibouti partnership and thanked Foreign Minister Yusuf for Djibouti's numerous contributions to peace and security in the Horn of Africa. This one is Hamas. It is a political armed organization in Palestine. Hamas urges African Union to reject Israel's observer status. The Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement, Hamas, on Friday urged member states attending the African Union summit slated for 5 and 6 February to reject granting observer status to Israel, a statement has announced. Hamas stated that Israel has practiced and is still practicing state terrorism and systematically commits all kinds of crimes against the Palestinian people, their land, and their holy sites. In a statement, Hamas also noted that Israel adopts a policy of ethnic cleansing and racial discrimination, affirming that many international rights groups have proven this. A recent example was the Amnesty International report, which described Israel as an apartheid system. Hamas noted that granting Israel official observer status at the African Union is a flagrant violation of the African Charter on Human Rights and the principle and the value of the African Union and its statute, which provides for the rejection and combating of racism, decolonization, and the right of self-determination of peoples. Concluding its statement, Hamas called on all the free people of the African continent to declare their solidarity with the Palestinian people and to do their best to thwart the reinstallment of the racist occupying power to the African Union, whose principles and objectives stipulate combating colonialism and racial discrimination. This came at the same time as Algeria spearheading a motion to revoke the decision made by the African Union to grant Israel observer status. Accepting Israel as an observer member state at the African Union has divided the African nation, as some accept it while others reject it. I also reported on the issue of the Middle East, especially Israel. Cruel operation against the Palestinian families, including demolishing their house and building new settlements on the Palestinian area. And I also called on the United Nations or international organization to speed up the two-state solution. Other than that, the Palestinians will continue continuously lose their land. After a while, they may not have any more. So it's better to do it sooner than later. Some claim about 1967. That's a good thing if it happened, but that is impossible. 1967 border. We're talking about these recent years. They are still moving further into Palestinian areas. This one is an update on COVID-19. So this is a very serious one still. As of Friday, more than 900,000 people in the United States have died of COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic, according to data from Johns Hopkins University. Experts believe the true burden of disease to be much higher. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that the number of COVID-19 deaths in the United States was about 32% higher than reported between February 2020 and September 2021. For the past 2 weeks, there have been more than 2,000 new COVID-19 deaths reported each day in the United States, according to Johns Hopkins University. So, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic on March 11, 2020. So, each day, 2,000 people died of COVID-19. Unvaccinated adults have 97 times greater risk of dying from COVID-19 than adults who are fully vaccinated and boosted, according to the latest CDC data. So this is official data we have to follow. We don't have to follow this conspiracy against the COVID-19. We don't have other solution except the vaccines and the recommendation of the health care officials. Conspiracy has no saving ground. Doesn't save us. Globally, there have been more than 5.7 million reported COVID-19 deaths. According to the Johns Hopkins data, the United States accounts for about 5% of the world population, but about 16% of COVID-19 deaths, more than any other country. COVID-19 death rates are higher and highest in Mississippi and the lowest in Hawaii. Overall, more than 1 in 5 people in the United States has been infected with COVID-19, with more than 76 million cases reported since the start of the pandemic. Credit for this one, CNN Health. It's a lot of details. If you want more details, you can get it from cnnhealth.com. They have a lot of details. So this is a statement by Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, on United States crossing on 900,000 deaths on COVID-19. This is a one page. I'll read it quickly. This is from White House. Today, our nation marks another tragic milestone. 900,000 American lives have been lost to COVID-19. They were beloved mothers and fathers, grandparents, children, brothers and sisters, neighbors and friends. Each soul is irreplaceable. We pray for the loved ones they have left behind, and together we keep every family enduring this pain in our hearts. After nearly 2 years, I know that the emotional, physical, and psychological weight of this pandemic has been incredibly difficult to bear. I know what it's like to stare at an empty chair around the kitchen table, but I also know that we carry an incredible capacity within ourselves, not only to come through our grief stronger, but to come together to protect one another. We now have more tools than ever before to save lives and fight this virus, with vaccines remaining our most important tool. Vaccines and boosters have proven incredibly effective and offer the highest level of protection. 250 million Americans have stepped up to protect themselves, their families, and their communities by getting at least one shot. And we have saved more than 1 million Americans' lives as a result. We can save even more lives and spare countless families from the deepest pain imaginable if everybody does their part. I urge all Americans, get vaccinated, get your kids vaccinated, and get your booster shot if you are eligible. It is free, easy, and effective, and it can save your life and the lives of those you love. That is President Joe Biden. So please listen to his advice. Do your part to save yourself, your family, friends, and your neighbor. So that's the end of the reading material. I have some short videos, then I will conclude today's presentation. Thank you again for joining me.
Save up to $5,000 on Ford F-150s during the big truck sale going on now at Hunman Ford. All Ford trucks are...
For nearly 2 years, the rainy seasons have failed in the lowland regions of eastern Ethiopia. The UN says more than 4 million people are facing critical water shortages. In recent months, the livestock they depend on to survive have been dying.
So that's the situation we are facing in Ethiopia. Be careful if you are watching with kids. Some of the images are disturbing. The deaths of the animals and also the injection, all this, you know.
The UN's Agency for Children. The UN says around 200,000 children are malnourished, and the numbers are growing fast. At mobile clinics like this one, people can get some help. Vitamin-rich therapeutic feeding paste can help to bring children back from the brink. Most of the people here depend on herding livestock to survive. They have to walk further every month to find water. The pools where the animals drink are a fraction of their usual size. Getting out what's left of the water isn't easy, but it keeps thirsty camels alive. The UN's mobile clinics are helping some, but it says it needs about $30 million to reach all the people who are in need.
This is part of the strategy that we appreciate to minimize unnecessary deaths among children, and it's a critical integrated package of life saving with sanitation, promotion, treatment of acute malnutrition, and the treatment of common illnesses, and including vaccinations.
As more animals die and crops fail, the number of people in need just goes up. The UN says in 2 months from now, nearly 7 million people will need help. Malcolm Webb, Al Jazeera.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Biden took office only a year ago, and under one-party Democrat rule, America is experiencing unprecedented adversity. Today, jobs are being destroyed, and we face crises in energy, education, crime, national security, the border, and more. Biden inflation is the highest in 40 years, resulting in real wage decreases with job destruction. Energy independence has been replaced by energy dependence, raising gas prices by 50%. Remote learning is catastrophic for students and teachers. Defunding police leads to homicide rates at record highs. National security endangered from feeble responses to China, Iran, Putin, and terrorists. 2 million illegal aliens, including murderous terrorists, have crossed into America. Today is a tragic historic landmark as our children are burdened by $30 trillion debt. America needs new positive leadership. In conclusion, the government elite and government Democrat elite think they're smarter than everyone and believe Democrat voters and Democrat media are ignorant to accept $5 trillion costs $0. I yield back.
Celebrate Valentine's Day for less with Kohl's. Get 65% off jewelry, 25% off festive pajamas.
Okay, one more. This is the
Vladimir
last one.
Putin and Xi Jinping standing shoulder to shoulder, sharing what they describe as an unshakable bond. The leaders of Russia and China met ahead of the opening of the Winter Olympics in Beijing. It's the first time President Xi has met a foreign counterpart in person since the beginning of the pandemic.
Our spirit of friendship and strategic partnership have reached an unprecedented level.
At the Sochi Winter Olympics 8 years ago, we promised to meet again. We have kept that promise.
The leaders signed a joint statement presenting a united front on a range of foreign policy issues. They called for NATO to end its expansion and for the military alliance to abandon its so-called Cold War approach. They also denounced the AUKUS security alliance between the United States, Britain and Australia, and the formation of further blocs in the Asia-Pacific. The statement comes as both Russia and China experience souring ties with the US and its Western and European allies. But those allies are also at odds.
They see that the West is not speaking with one voice and has some division. So this benefits both Russia and China.
The visit comes as tensions escalate over the presence of more than 100,000 Russian soldiers on its border with Ukraine. Washington is threatening to impose tough sanctions on Moscow should its forces invade. Beijing says Russia's security concerns are legitimate.
The intention here is to send a very clear message to the West that Russia has options, that Russia-China relationship is a possible alternative for Moscow, that it is not going to be backed into a corner.
The leaders are expected to sign 15 agreements on issues ranging from trade to technology during Putin's visit. Russia will increase gas supplies to China and has announced a 30-year contract for a new pipeline between the two nations. China already receives gas through what's named the Power of Siberia pipeline that began pumping supplies in 2019.
Economic support from China could undermine any Western effort to punish any possible Russian incursion into Ukraine, but analysts say an even bigger concern is a possible deepening of military cooperation between Moscow and Beijing.
Xi Jinping has often spoken of his deep friendship with Vladimir Putin, who was the first major leader to confirm his attendance at the Beijing Winter Olympics. The US, UK, Canada and Australia have not sent officials to the event in protest against China's human rights record. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Okay. So these are the issues for today. And the Republican representatives saying all negative things about the Democrats in power and calling for new positive leadership. I think he's entitled to his comment, but the reality, these people never called for anything when former President Trump was in the White House, when the insurrection to the Capitol Hill happened, when police officers killed, the building destroyed, never called for any investigation. Now, desperate to go back to power, to take the White House. So that's why they are, saying everything is negative about Biden. Everything, what he do. So we need a new leadership now. Really? Why you were so quiet during your former president, President Trump, when he was saying we do not have a country anymore unless you reject and cancel the certification of the election? You never said anyone. So that's interesting. And, Ethiopia is facing famine, drought in Somalia, Afar, Oromia region, and other areas. So Pan-Africanism never talked about this. They should call about this and how they can help those suffering on those areas. The Prime Minister even never mentioned about, he mentioned, but he never called for Pan-Africanism to join him and solve this problem. So that's all I have for today. I will be back with other updates and the news. Thank you, and be safe, and please get your booster shot. So long, everyone.